Hello, my name's Katie and thank you for joining me for Art Snaps, the podcast that celebrates Swindon's modern British art collection. At the time of releasing this, we're thanking and honouring those who fought for our country 75 years ago in World War II. This is, of course, a moment to reflect on the impact that this huge conflict had on Britain and its people. So in considering a theme for this episode, I felt that the content should reflect current events by looking at artworks which respond to times of conflict. If you're a regular listener to Art Snaps, you will already have come across artworks from Swindon's collection which respond specifically to catastrophes of the Second World War. These include composition by Janko Oldler, a Polish artist who was forced to escape Nazi persecution, which is included in episode 3 about the Bomford gift. And from episode 6, highlights from the civic offices, there's Claude Francis Barry's Tower Bridge London, an atmospheric painting of London during the Blitz. These are probably two of the most powerful images of conflict in Swindon's collection. But once I started my research for this episode, the links between art and conflict presented themselves everywhere. And I think this is because of art's ability to communicate with such immediacy and expression. And this makes it a really powerful tool for recording and commemorating times of conflict. And today I've chosen to discuss 3 pieces from artists who have encountered conflict firsthand. Let's begin with Canadian Soldiers by Augustus John. Again, if you're a regular listener, you'll know we've already encountered Augustus John in episode 4, where we looked a bit at his talent as a draftsman. This is yet another wonderful drawing by John in Swindon's collection. It was created during the First World War, when he volunteered to contribute work to an art collection memorialising Canada's war effort. Since he was unable to pass the Army Medical, this work gave him the opportunity to see the action on the Western Front. The commission was for an epic Canadian War memorial, and Swindon's drawing is one of several sketches produced by John in preparation for the panorama. The setting is the occupied territory of Louvain in Belgium, where Augustus came across a bombed-out church which had been converted into a battery by Canadian soldiers. He described a completely devastated town with a few battered churches, slag heaps of coal mines and the occasional exploding shell. Augustus has captured all these details using a variety of swift marks in black ink, including fluid lines representing moving groups of soldiers in the foreground, and more aggressive mark making to show shells throwing up heaps of debris in the background. The final design for the memorial is quite different from this drawing and shows other elements such as refugees and prisoners. But several features from the Swindon sketch are included, such as the reclining soldiers, the observation balloon, the ruined walls from the castle and the exploding shell. However, the piece was one of the greatest challenges of John's career and remains incomplete. But the drawing is a great record of what he experienced as an artist during the war. Next, I want to talk about Leslie Cole's portrait, Mary, Young Girl with Doll, from 1946. At first glance, this might not look like an image of conflict, but when considered in the context of Cole's work, I certainly think it could be categorised that way. Leslie Cole was a Swindon-born artist who initially trained at the Swindon School of Art and then the Royal College of Art. Then in 1940, after a few years of teaching and exhibiting, he applied to become an official war artist. Now, I want to hover over this point for a moment because official war art is really important to our understanding of World War II, as well as the development of art in the mid-20th century. The purpose of the War Artists Advisory Scheme was to commission artists to record and respond to the conflict, and this gave artists steady employment during the war and gives us, and future generations, a unique and comprehensive record of social and military life during World War II. Though Cole was rejected from the scheme at first, in 1943 he was awarded his first commission, and he went on to become one of the War Artists Advisory Committee's most productive artists. He travelled widely to Malta, France, Greece, Germany and Southeast Asia, and he recorded a huge range of activity from World War II, from the building of aircraft to military action, and the impact of events on civilians. His work also depicted significant military events, including the end of the Siege of Malta, the invasion of Italy, and the Normandy offensive following D-Day. He experienced the extraordinary and the horrific, and was present at the liberation of the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, where he produced some of his most powerful work. His skill as a portrait painter is also evident in his depictions of military figures, and portraiture is something he continued to pursue after he returned home. Swindon Museum and Art Gallery owns a number of post-war paintings and lithographs by Cole, which are largely portraits. Mary, Young Girl with Doll was painted in 1946, possibly whilst Cole was still completing his war artist commissions. That same year he settled in London, where he established a studio, got a job teaching at the Central School of Art, and exhibited regularly at the Royal Academy. As you can see, the piece depicts a young girl wearing a shabby nightgown, alone in ambiguous surroundings, clutching tightly the arm of a doll which hangs at her side. It is beautifully painted, with the light falling on her face, throwing one half into shadow and illuminating the other. And Cole has handled the paint in an almost impressionistic way, capturing the girl and her minimal surroundings with swiftly applied layers of paint, so that her presence almost comes across as quite transient. Cole doesn't offer much information about who or where she is, and it seems to be more about the mood or atmosphere she exudes. As in many of Cole's post-war portraits, Mary projects a great sense of melancholy. Her direct gaze is at once strong and resigned, and there is something about that doll clutched so tightly in her fist. Through her indistinct surroundings and the lack of an accompanying figure, the image seems to be one of resigned loneliness and isolation. Though it is often said that Cole produced his most powerful paintings during the war, this portrait is very moving and seems to be haunted by still fresh memories of horror and conflict. Finally, I want to discuss a more recent addition to Swindon's collection by Prudence Maltby, a Salisbury-based artist whose work is very much rooted in conflict. Maltby has an interesting relationship with Swindon Museum and Art Gallery, so I want to talk a bit about where that began, before discussing this beautifully haunting drawing. In 2013, she initiated a project called Cicatrix, which she delivered in collaboration with Wiltshire-based artists Henny Burnett and Susan Francis. Cicatrix explored the impact of the First World War on the landscape of Salisbury Plain and the physical and emotional scars that it bears. This international multimedia project toured for 4 years between 2014 and 18, as part of the centenary of World War I. In the exhibition's final UK manifestation at Swindon Museum and Art Gallery in September to December 2018, Maltby showcased a stunning installation of what she has called scar drawings, which are appropriated from places where a struggle has occurred. In these small yet extraordinarily powerful pieces, Maltby scribbles, scratches, smudges, layers, conceals and reveals. These incredible expressive drawings reference physical manifestations of war, as well as internal conflict, and reveal a practice which is rooted in mark making. Maltby describes her work beautifully in the following quote, which has been extracted from a statement about the work. Quote, "The drawings are concerned with storying and are related to the threats faced when fighting for survival and the effects on the human spirit. The drawings are my attempt at dissolving the limits of their chosen form and are presented like threads of old conversations, recording events and echoing times, gone but not forgotten." Unquote. Swindon's work Roadkill from 2013 was part of the display in Cicatrix at Swindon Museum and Art Gallery, and certainly there's a sense of memory within this piece, of concealing and revealing fragments of an unsettling experience. The smudged and layered graphite and charcoal give it an ephemeral quality, as if the image might be swept away at any moment. It's very haunting, And Maltby expressed that it references her experience of seeing a corpse when she was 17 on a long stretch of road where there had been a roadblock and a skirmish. Being the first scene she'd seen like this, it remains etched in her memory. So we're offered a sense of a never-ending road with a ghostly figure that forever haunts the landscape and the memory of the artist. This personal, autobiographical element that Maltby brings to her work is what makes it so powerful, and the articulation of an early experience of conflict within a landscape made it a really special addition to the installation at Swindon Museum and Art Gallery. And it's great to be able to hold a legacy from the Cicatrix project and the exhibition in Swindon's collection. On that note, I'll bring this Art Snap to an end by saying thank you very much to you for listening, and of course, since conflict has been at the centre of this episode, a huge thank you to our heroes of the Second World War. Before I go, I want to mention that next week, instead of an Art Snap, I'll be releasing a longer talk about Swindon's art collection for the Swindon Spring Festival, which will be available here on the YouTube channel. I'll be talking about more works from the collection and revealing a bit more about the story of how Swindon's collection was formed. And that will be released on Saturday the 16th of May. And of course, I'd highly recommend visiting the Swindon Spring Festival website to check out the other fantastic events which they're still running through digital media. Once again, thanks so much for listening. Do take care and bye for now.